It's all that the grueling grind of training for fitness and for life is much like a hopper at an old gravel pit. It sorts you and shakes you, sifts you and crushes you to make you useful. Come, grow with us as we dig into these kids' lives, their training, their social lives, their plans and dreams, their competitions. Stay tuned here at Clydesdale Media.
All right. Well, welcome, guys. Thanks to Russ and Shellie Kerstetter are here. My name's Stephanie Price. For anyone who's watching, I'm a mom and a CrossFit licensed event coordinator. And I am here to talk today about being the parent of a CrossFit team. This is actually episode 5. So everyone, thanks for continuing to bear with me as I learn how this all works on the podcast world. But when I started the Copper Hopper, I really said, you know what, we need to talk to parents because as we're going to find out as we have some conversation here this morning, being the parent of a CrossFit teen is almost as stressful as being a CrossFit teen yourself. I don't know, maybe that's not fair, but I know parents have lots of questions that I've come in contact with over the years. So we're hoping to dig into that this morning. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and post questions in the chat. And I have a little helper this morning, my 12-year-old son, who's watching those questions. And he's going to tell me what you all want to know from Russ and Shellie. But first, let's just do some introductions. So like I've said, this is Russell and Shellie Kerstetter. They're from Kansas, and they are the parents of 3 girls, house full of girls. But that's been fun. And 2 of those girls were CrossFit Games athletes. And maybe you can tell us just a little bit more about yourselves, Russ and Shellie, as far as what your life's been like, maybe how long you've been married, what y'all do, and maybe sort of, just any intro information that people might want to know about you.
Sure. We're originally from Southwest Iowa, moved down to Kansas City, which Shawnee, Kansas is a suburb of Kansas City. We moved down to Kansas City after I graduated from law school. And we've been down here for, it was about 27 years, I think. So kind of, the only ones in our family to leave Iowa and venture off. So we've been down here kind of doing it on our own since then. But yeah, we've lived down here for the last 27 years. And like I said, I actually am an attorney, and the first 25 years of my career practiced law, but I just recently made a change. And I'm actually the VP of operations for Heartland Coca-Cola. So I've moved over into an operations role. So that's been a lot of fun, very challenging, learning a lot. That's kind of a little bit about me, and Russell can.
I'm a project manager for a construction company here in town. I've worked with them for 19 years. So we do mostly stuff here in the Midwest, but have ventured to the West Coast a little bit and down south. But
nice. Yeah. Sounds like you both have pretty busy, full lives, just in your jobs, let alone your parenting. And then tell me about your girls. So you've got Anna, Ellie, and Olivia. Are they all still in Kansas with you?
Well, so Anna is 23, and she just recently graduated from the University of Arkansas. And so she is back home after being gone for the last 4 years. So she's currently living with us. She's looking for a job. She's working a couple part-time jobs, but looking for that kind of one permanent, dream job, really. Our middle daughter, Ellie, she's 20, and she is currently in nursing school at the University of Arkansas. So she's a junior, just getting started with all the really fun nursing classes. We're actually headed down there next weekend for her white coat ceremony. So you're in nursing, you know
yeah.
how special that is. But yeah, it's and And then we have Olivia, who is 17, and she's a junior in high school. So yeah, we've kind of been through the whole mix of, let's see, the oldest one being gone and the 2 younger ones being home, then the 2 older ones gone at school, and just Olivia, which she thought she was going to hate, but she actually enjoyed a little bit. And now the oldest and the youngest are home. So yeah, we're on the path to empty nesters, but
And
yeah, not there yet.
you really have all the experience then, all the way up that people like me are clamoring to hear about your wisdom, because you've got it all. You know, my son Azariah is 19, and then I have an Ellie also, and she's 16. So we're kind of in the throes of it ourselves. Tell us how you guys, your family in general, sort of got interested in CrossFit as a sport. It's not something that, you know, a lot of kids do. At least it didn't used to be a while back. How did that become a thing for you guys?
Well, that was definitely Russell starting, so I'll let him tell that part of it.
Well, I guess as you go through life and you get kind of stuck in the rut, you have all the kids and you quit working out for a while after a while. And then all of a sudden I went to a personal trainer for a while and was kind of working out, and then did that for about a year or so. And then there was this CrossFit gym not too far away. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go in there and check it out, see what they do, you know? And I think that was in around 2014 or so, and 2015. And I don't know, I went in there and really liked the atmosphere and everything, and just kind of went from there. And the girls used to just come in on the Saturdays, you know how it's kind of like open gym after the workout, and you just kind of keep the kids to the side and make sure they don't get injured or do anything while you're doing the community WOD on Saturday mornings. And then after that, it's like a jungle gym for them, jumping on the bars or doing whatever and running around. And so they just kind of started getting into it a little bit then when we both started going there and doing it. So it was kind of a family thing. On Saturdays, we go do CrossFit, and the kids kind of just took off from there. And then we kind of went, they didn't really have a kids program at the gym. So we were trying, you know, Ellie was probably 11 or, you know, 10 or 11, and Olivia was probably 8 or 9. You know, it was just kind of, they were trying to figure out, they wanted to do this stuff. And we're like, well, we found another gym that had CrossFit for kids. So they kind of went through the kids program, and they just kind of started getting into it. And then they actually let them go through a fundamentals class, you know, for so many weeks or whatever to start to get into the regular classes. So after they did that, all 3 of the girls actually went through all that, and just kind of took off from there. And
I think one of the things that really got them fired up about CrossFit is we went and watched the CrossFit Games when they were pretty young. So Russell's dad lives out in California. We were out there visiting him, and whenever we go to visit him, we kind of go up and down the coast. He lives in the Central Coast, and so, you know, you kind of go south or north, and you do different things. And it just happened that the CrossFit Games were going on when we were out there, and it was early in the week, and it was the masters and teens went first. And we didn't really know anybody. And it was easy to get in and do something like that, because when the masters and teens went, it wasn't nearly as crowded. And so we went out to watch them, and then they got to see the teenagers go, and they were like blown away. They thought it was really cool. And then also got to see some of the big named athletes at the time. Because they were around, this is kind of way back when CrossFit wasn't as big as it is now. And you know, the CrossFit Games was a little bit, wasn't quite as well attended as it is now. And so it was just kind of a little bit, you got more access to the athletes, and they loved that. And so we kind of, we went several years in a row and watched, and they had pretty decent, you know, I remember they went to a autograph session with a lot of the athletes, and the girls got their picture taken with Camille and Annie, and got autographs from Stacy Tovar, and and then we would go to some of the regionals too, because the regionals weren't too far away, and so we would travel to regionals. And I remember we were in Minneapolis, and that was the first year that Brooke Wells made it to the games. And they got to see that. I think she was 19 at the time. They got autographs from, they have shoes with autographs, Julie Forche. And I think we got to see her do, finish with her foot in the boot. So, that really always got them very excited about competing. And I think that's really what drove them. At the time we first started, Ellie was in gymnastics, and actually she was going through, she had a lot of injuries, kind of stress type fracture, injuries in her feet and her legs. And I was ready for her to stop gymnastics because it was so hard on her body. So we kind of pushed her towards CrossFit a little bit, like try CrossFit, try cheer. She tried track and some other things, just so because gymnastics, anybody who's done that knows it's so all consuming, and they practice for several hours every day. And so if anything is she did pick up on CrossFit, but she became so obsessed with CrossFit that she was really doing the same thing she was doing in gymnastics. So after that, I think I realized that was just her personality, and that she was going to be very driven to do whatever it was she set her mind to. So, then she kind of was on the CrossFit path and took off from there.
I loved your word picture, Russ, of the mornings, Saturday morning community WODs, and then the kids are like at our gym, they swing on the rings, and they're trying to climb the ropes, and God knows what else. And man, you both said so many things that just sparked a lot of questions. How fun is it that however many years later, 6-7 years later, Olivia's competing against those ladies that she put, or next to the ladies that she was getting their autographs. I think that's cool.
It is pretty crazy when we have pictures of her at about 9 years old with Annie, and she was down at Rogue with Annie and Cara, and it was pretty crazy. And I mean, just like with even Noah Olson, and I think we shared the picture with him and he posted, but when she first went to Wadapalooza, I think she was 9 years old, and she got a picture taken with Noah, and now here she is right alongside Noah down there at Wadapalooza. So it was it is crazy. I'm sure these guys think, man, like, look at her then and look at her now. I've been doing this that long, but yeah, it's neat to see.
It is really neat. Well, there's so many things I want to ask you about. I guess one of the first ones, I'll kind of back into it, but you mentioned, Olivia's right next to, all those adult athletes. And did you made the decision, or she made the decision this year to stay in that teen division? Am I right about that?
Well, this year she actually is going to try to go elite.
Okay.
They've changed it back and forth several times, and but she will automatically show up on the teen leaderboard and the elite leaderboard, I think, because she can do both this year. Like last year, they changed. The last couple of years, I think they had to decide which way they wanted to go at some point. So last year, she decided she had to make the decision that she was going to stay teen. Really, her career has been, the first year was COVID. And so the first year she could compete. I mean, she's been doing this for so long. And then the first year that she could actually go to the games, they got canceled for COVID. Yeah, but she was able to go to the pit, and that was fun for her. And I'm really thankful that you guys had that for the kids. Because, like I said, she'd been doing this a long time and hadn't had the opportunity to compete. And so then the first year that she could go, she was 15. And so last year was really only her second year at the games. To try and go elite at that point, I think there was a lot of people that wanted her to try it. But luckily, Olivia's pretty mature for her age, and we were able to sit down and have the conversation, like, there's no need to rush it. You can enjoy being a teenager and getting that additional experience. And so it really wasn't too difficult of a decision for her. I think the only thing that she questioned is, like, she ended up doing better in the quarterfinal qualifier than she thought she would. And so I think for a minute it made her stop and be like, but that ended up working out great. And that was definitely the right decision for her to develop more. And yeah, so then this year though, she is going to try to go elite. So she will, if she qualifies, she does plan to compete in semifinals, but she has the ability to do the teen qualifier too. So if she doesn't qualify for the games, she will be able to go teen.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot in there. That's really neat how last year you said you sat down and had a conversation. Is that how, as you've been going over these years, your counselor, your coach, your mom and dad, you're all of those things, helping her to come to that decision. Has there been some ups and downs, or it sounds like Olivia particularly is pretty open to just hearing you. I guess where I'm going is, sometimes they can get so obsessed and get way ahead of themselves and really distracted. And I loved how you said it, Shellie, that you want her to just have kind of a normal teen experience.
Yeah. That's been a struggle the whole time, honestly, Stephanie. Like, I think that so Ellie was a little bit different in that she had more balance, I would say, because she was a cheerleader in high school. So she cheered and did the CrossFit, and she actually even ran track a couple of years, but the track season started to conflict with CrossFit. I think when Ellie did it, it was a little easier for the kids to do other sports and CrossFit. But as CrossFit's grown, I think that has become harder and harder. It's almost like maybe you can do it if you have a smaller school that'll work with you, and maybe not make it you have to be at all the different practices. Let your CrossFit training kind of serve as practice. But that, I know it's hard when it's a team sport, like, to not have them be at all the different practices. So I think that has changed between when Ellie did it and when Olivia did it. So Ellie did, because she cheered, she still did things at the high school. Olivia, she doesn't do much at her high school, and I have worried that that she misses out on the high school experience. But at the same time, like, she'll come back and say to me, you want me to go to the high school dances? Mom, you know what they're doing at the high school dances? They're drinking, and I'm not going to drink. And, and so then I have to, like, say, okay, like, she understands what she's doing. She's mature. Like I said, she's, having 2 older sisters, I think. And also CrossFit and training with 20-year-olds has made her more mature than probably the typical 16, 17-year-old. So she's very driven. She knows what she wants. And so, I've had to stop pushing her to do the high school stuff. So, she doesn't go to the high school that she did when she was a freshman. I think she tried each thing and went to a homecoming dance and went to, so we're kind of a dance here or there, but she also had COVID like the first couple of years of her high school too. So, it's worked out fine. I mean, she's happy with what she's doing. So, I'm learning that there's no need to, that she's fine. She's doing what she wants to do, and she's not really going to regret, not going to a homecoming dance or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you bring up a really, really just great subject. At that elite level, it's become, I would agree with you, just sort of almost like, I don't want to say all or nothing. It's not all or nothing, but to be, last year, if I did the math right, there was almost 6,000 teenagers worldwide who signed up for the CrossFit Open, and then 40 of them, will were at the games. And so, that's obviously just such a teeny tiny percentage. And then even fewer of those are able to be at, Olivia's level or Mal's level or whatever to move into that individual. And so it's just such a tiny piece of it. And if you're going to be at that tippy top, I would agree with you that it's definitely become a almost that's all that they really do. And it's not necessarily that she's missing out on a teenage experience, right? She just is having a different one, maybe
Right. Yeah.
a little different. And I remember the time when my own CrossFit Games teenager came and sat down, and he had just started school, and we actually kept him home for homeschool for his freshman year, the year that he was training for the games. And when he went to public school, he came home and he said, "Mom, I just don't think I'm going to have a lot of friends in high school." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? That sounds like so sad, And he said, "Well, I just don't do what they do, and they don't do what I do, and it's just kind of the way it is, And many teenagers aren't, training 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Right.
But it's just,
and
yeah.
extremely disciplined too, like with their diet and stuff. And, there aren't like McDonald's runs. They all the stuff that, typical teenagers do is just not a part of their lives. And, and they're okay with that. So we need to be okay with it too.
How have you as parents kind of handled, and how would you recommend parents, what have you learned over the years, handling sort of the maybe the emotional stress of competing at that level, or of training so hard and then maybe suffering an injury, or not not finishing as well as you thought you would, or whatever it might be? Have you had any bumps along the way with any of your children along those lines, and how have you handled that?
Yeah, we've had a couple. I mean, the two that come to mind, I think at one point Ellie had a bit of a back injury, and Olivia had a knee injury. And Olivia's was both of them were the timing. I remember Olivia, it was the last event of Wadapalooza. She was going all out because if she won the event, she would have podiumed, and it was like box jumps, and her foot caught and she dislocated her kneecap. And like she was sitting out there, it was horrible because she was sitting out there like, and she knew she wanted to try and keep going, but she couldn't. And she kind of just watched it slip away. But worse than that, I think the beginning of the Open was only about 3 weeks away. And this was the first year she could have actually qualified for the Open. So it was Wadapalooza right before COVID hit, and she had 3 weeks to recover for the Open. And we were very scared that she wasn't going to be able to do the Open after all of these years of waiting. But more than anything, I think with the emotions in those situations, you kind of have to know your kid and know how they react and handle those things. And, both of my girls, I they get quiet. They maybe get a little grumpy and may lash out, at like us as parents. And that's when I know they're stressed. And so it's all, I mean, it's like dealing with any teenager, which, can sometimes it's all about timing and approaching them at the right time. Maybe not right when they're in the moment, but maybe later when they've calmed down, to try to get them to talk about it and try to get them to just at least address that they are stressed and that's why they're upset, and maybe taking it out on other people. And then, just hopefully if they'll talk about it, it helps them out. I mean, we've been really fortunate, to have Jacob and really a lot of the people that have been there with Jacob around. But Jacob is amazing at, it's kind of funny because I do remember when Ellie first started training with Jacob, and there were 2 other guys that were training there with them. And, they're all young men in their early 20s. And I remember after a workout, Ellie like started to cry, and it was just like emotional exhaustion, but they were like, what did we do? This little girl's crying. Like, did we make her cry? And we're like, no, she's not crying because of that. She's crying because of the emotional exhaustion of finishing the qualifier. That was the qualifier to go to the games, the online qualifier. And I think they were worried they had pushed her too hard, but I'm like, no, this is just the emotional release of it's all over. I'm done. I did it, so it's funny to have watched them grow together over time. And, but Jacob's always been very sensitive to that. He's always been really good at reading the girls too, and knowing like when they're upset, and he might just be like, come on, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk and talk about it. And that helps too, because, sometimes they don't want to talk to mom and dad. Sometimes mom and dad are the last ones they want to talk to. So we've been very fortunate to have Jacob along for the journey, and help guide us the entire way.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, Shellie's talking about Jacob Hebner, right? Pretty well-known athlete. I've always enjoyed anytime I've gotten to talk to Jacob. He's just so genuine and funny and transparent. I feel like he's just authentic, and I enjoy that about him. But you bring up a good subject that I know a lot of parents are asking about. At least they always ask whenever we get together, is about coaching and finding the right coaches for your kids, and the right influences, and the right athletes for them to train with. And how did you, with Olivia, how did you come with Jacob? Were you guys already friends, and then how did you chosen along the way? I think we need this coach, or no, that's not a good match. How do you kind of navigate that and help your kids navigate that?
Well, the funny thing is, and this is something where probably all parents need a little help, because it's not a well-established like network. And maybe if we all talk to each other more, and we could be resources for each other, because I think navigating this part of it is the most difficult. And honestly, like, there's usually not a lot of options as you're coming up. And so you kind of fall into the situations. I think that's the way it worked for us at first anyway, because, you're training at a certain gym, and you just find somebody that might be able to help you. Now it's probably a little more developed because there's more online coaching. But at the beginning, when we started, that wasn't even a thing. So it was really being at the gym, and we happened to be at the gym that Jacob trained out of, and Jacob brought in a couple of guys to train with him who were, they were coaches too. They were they worked at the gym as coaches, both had their L1s, both had undergraduate degrees, like in kinesiology, and the other one had an undergraduate degree, like he was going to PT school. So, they had that background, and they're the ones that first started working with the girls, like on the basics and teaching them the lifts and different things like that. So like, we kind of just got lucky there. And honestly, the fact that 320 something guys would be willing to work with like a 14-year-old and a 11-year-old girl, because once Ellie qualified for the games, Jacob did invite her like out to his barn, which was at his house, to train with them that summer. And there was definitely, and that's kind of, I think, when the big brother little sister relationship kind of developed, because as you can imagine, at that age there was a little like whining. And I remember them being like, no whining, like we're putting up a sign at the barn, no whining, you can't come in if there's any whining. So that was a big part of the girls' development too. Like, they learned that you do this stuff and you don't complain about it. So that situation lasted for quite a while until, I think a lot of what happens with a lot of CrossFit athletes, then, life, they decide that they're moving on. And so then, but the one constant has kind of always been Jacob to maneuver us like through the situation. And more than anything, I think that's been evident with like what happened recently with Olivia. And after Rogue, Olivia sat down and was like, I have this list of things that I want to work on. And, and Jacob just told her, I've taken you as far as I can take you. He's like, because as great as Jacob is, like, he isn't, that's not his training. That's not like he's not a professional coach or whatever, he's done CrossFit for all this time, but that's not, plus he's got other things going on in his life too and so, he just was told her, I think you need professional coaching. So, she just recently made the move to Proven, and, that's just been the progression. But I think, figuring out what's right for the coaching part of it is definitely the most challenging part. It's a little bit luck. It's a little bit, trying to find the right fit. And I think maybe even just from what we just went through and trying to decide what was the right situation for Olivia going forward, really you just call and talk to the people. If you've got people that you're thinking about, you call and talk to them and have a conversation, and you find what's right for you and for your kid. So in the end, I mean, just feel like Olivia's in a really good place, and so we're happy with that.
Yeah, it sounds great. I actually have 2 questions here from somebody who's asking related questions. And so what role did the local coach have in identifying potential in your daughters as being elite level competitors? So Russ, you talk about, just hanging out on a Saturday morning, playing around. The next thing you know, it's not the next thing, but they're at the CrossFit Games. Who sort of said, did the local coach or someone there at your gym at Cobra Command, or maybe it was Jacob, sort of say like, I think that Ellie is going places? How did Ellie and then Olivia go from playing at the gym on a Saturday morning to the CrossFit Games? Who recognized this is what this questioner is asking.
Well, when they were at Cobra and they were doing the workouts, and when Ellie was going through the open, and then she got to the qualifier, and then, she was in the top. So then just once she was close to qualifying for the games, Jacob and them guys were like, well, it was Jacob and Zach Carcetti and Andrew Keekler, and they were just pretty good about noticing those guys. They're like, well, these girls aren't bad, they're pretty good. So then, after Ellie qualified, then that's when, obviously, like Shellie said, they invited her out to the barn during the summer to train with them or whatever. But I would say those guys kind of just noticed it and be like, well, she, they're pretty good, And then Olivia, as she trained with Ellie, she was obviously driven all the time, so she's always trying to catch up with her sister. And as that kept going, then she obviously they kept her around too. So they knew she was going to be something, because she was a little bit stronger. So
Olivia was the typical little sister trying to keep up, and then slowly she would a couple workouts she would beat Ellie, and then, like, as you can imagine, that became a little bit then there was a little tension between the two of them as Olivia would beat Ellie on certain workouts. But yeah, I mean, Olivia's always been a little bit stronger and just a different body type than Ellie. And so as the weights got heavier, I think those that became kind of the challenge for Ellie to kind of keep going in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I know to speak to this person's question too, I was just walking into the gym one day, into my office to go do something. And I happened to look over, and it was a homeschool class. And there was a girl, her name's Naomi Grubert, and she was snatching. And you know how you kind of do a double take, because usually teenage snatches look just, you're a little bit nervous, but hers was just beautiful. And I said, who was that? And then I talked to the coach, obviously our head coach, and they said, yeah, she's good. So we just made sure to enroll her in the open. But I think, it sounds like a lot of times it is dependent on your local coaches to really be recognizing those, athletes, and then somebody develop them, because a lot of parents, you guys are pretty savvy, you're already in the CrossFit world, but a lot of parents have no idea, how to take them from one level to the next. The other question, which I thought was really insightful from the same person on the YouTube, was how do you help, and I really want to hear your answers here, how do you help your kids differentiate the difference between a goal, and I'm going for the goal, and it's a really high goal, and uh, maybe an aspiration that is like maybe more realistic. So, for example, I gave you those numbers earlier, 40 out of 6,000 kids worldwide go to the CrossFit Games. And so, now both of your girls did, but most of them are not going to. How did you all handle that? Um, I remember when my own son came and said, I want to go to the CrossFit Games. My first thought was, oh, that's crazy. You know, I just figured it was somebody way out there. But then I started to look at it and thought, well, you just might be good enough, and then we get on a path. But how do we help those other 5,000 kids, to have a realistic expectation, but also not, squash their dreams? Does that sort of make sense? Do you guys have any insight on that?
I don't know that you need to. I don't. I think it's okay for them to have the goal to want to go for the CrossFit Games, and I wouldn't necessarily tell them it's not possible, because it is. But I just would focus on helping them understand how much work and dedication it takes to get there. And it's great that you can have that goal, and you can absolutely achieve it if you're willing to do what it takes. And I would probably focus more on helping them understand what it actually does take to get there, and see if that's really what they want to do. And then if it is what they want to do, help them. Because, I mean, for most people, like if they're willing to put in the work, it could be possible. But the work is, it is, I mean, a typical day for Olivia, she starts her day at about 5:30 in the morning, and she goes to a class, that's a college class that she's taking, she has to drive a bit to, and then she comes back and goes to school all day, and she gets home at 3 o'clock, and she goes out to train, doesn't get home usually until about 8 o'clock at night, and then she's got homework and things to do to get ready to start it all over again the next day. So and in between there, she has to meal prep, and she has all of her meals planned out for the day, and so it's a grind, and it's especially hard right now, like while she's still in school. I think she's looking forward to the days where her days can focus on training, but maybe just helping them understand the work that it takes to get there. I mean, as the girls grew up in it, there were a lot of, like I said, there were a lot of, high school events that they probably missed because there were vacations that we didn't take because, the qualifiers are all during spring break. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. And so that's the part that people, I guess, don't see. And it's kind of sacrifice on the whole family's part too, because like I said, like our oldest daughter hasn't competed in the sport, but she's there for every event, like supporting. And, there's a lot of spring break trips that we didn't get to take because it was CrossFit instead, or, we've tried to balance it and do a little something, and maybe we do we've done open workouts in Texas to try and get a couple days away. So we've tried to keep a balance there a little bit for them, but that there is a lot of sacrifice that goes into it.
I think having fun, you got to keep having fun. I mean,
yeah, that is key. That is a big part of it. And Jacob, he's funny, and he keeps them laughing. There's always a fine line, right, between laughing and crying. And I'm sure if anybody's seen the way, he's thrown mice at him, like done little things like that older brothers tend to do. So he knows how to walk that line between, like, when they're about to break. He usually brings in the fun and keeps it fun, and that is important, like, because it is a lot of hard work, and it would be very different if they weren't having fun along the way.
It's great. I've been interviewing. I'm following a couple of teens through the open and then into their season, and a couple of them I'm pretty sure will make the games, and some of them are going to get real close, and I don't know, maybe they all will. Anyway, the point is, as I've been talking to them along the way, I always sort of end by asking them what's their best advice, and they say keep having fun, exactly what you said. So they're seeing that right now already as 15, 16-year-olds, and because if it's not fun, then it's a rhetorical question in our minds, right, as parents, but like, what's the point? What's the point if you're not having fun? And then I guess I would ask you too, isn't there sort of like I don't want to say an in between, but the CrossFit Games, and this is what I've been telling our teenagers a lot. I said that's an awesome goal, and like that's the Olympics of our sport, or the Super Bowl of our sport, and let's aim for it. Let's go for it. But guess what? There's a lot of other. There's a middle. There's an in between. There's lots of other competitions. You can just be a competitive CrossFitter and have a great time, and without going to Madison, or it could be. I know we've had a lot of teens that have been through the pit that are now coaching, or whatever they're doing. So there's a lot of space within the sport beyond just one competition.
Yeah, I think any local competitions or anything like like your guys' competition at the pit. I mean, that's a well-run, fun competition. I mean, that's Wadapalooza. If you can qualify for that, I mean, it's kind of crazy down there, but it's a who, especially if you're from Michigan or Kansas or whatever, who doesn't want to go to Florida in January, right?
Right.
But I mean, it's good experience for them, if nothing else, and it's like almost like a big time competition between the pit or Wadapalooza. It just feels like the next thing closest to the games,
And the other thing they can have a lot of fun doing is team. I don't like that. That can be a lot of fun, especially, I'll tell you, and this is another thing like that. I had to kind of learn. I think for us anyway, like having friends online is kind of an odd thing, but there is a community of CrossFit teenagers that they are connected kind of online, right? And it has been great for Olivia, particularly. And Ellie had friends that way too, but Olivia more so has probably had friends online that have then led to, hey, let's get a team together and go down to Nashville and do a competition. And they had a lot of fun doing that. That's, and that just opens up, like, they get together, and that's when, like, I love those because I get to see Olivia be a true teenager when she gets to hang out with other teenagers who are CrossFit athletes. I've always, when she trains, she's training with 20-year-olds and doesn't always get a lot of time with other teenagers. So we are super thankful for the connections and the relationships that she's built with other CrossFit teenagers that happen to be spread out all across the country, but they stay in contact, online and via text and, Snapchat and whatever, way more than I or we even realize. But
Mhm.
it's especially great when they get to come together and, whether it's for a competition like that, where it doesn't have to be super competitive. I mean, I know they're always competitive, but they get to have a little fun too, and hang out in Nashville and do things that, I mean, we think all the time, like, we don't even know really what it's like to have a typical teenager that goes out in the evenings and has a curfew
Right.
and whatever, because our kids have always been home early and in bed so that they can get up and train the next day. Saturday and Sundays are big training days, So I think one of our first experiences was when they wanted to go do something, hang out together after a CrossFit competition, and we were like, "Hey, we have to remember what it's like to be a teenager and do those things, and it's completely normal." And so we're just lucky that they get that experience too.
Yeah, that's definitely one of our, part of our mission at the pit with our event and our camps and stuff is and that's what the kids say they love more than anything. More than anything. They love the programming, they love competing. They want to just work out. They're crazy, but they are like, I just made so many friends, and they all, yeah, they're on all those Snap things and say, because I'll still hear Ezra say, oh yeah, in the group chat. I'm like, what group chat? And he's like, well, we're all in the group chat, so they'll talk about each other's PRs, and they'll talk about each other's, personal lives and whatever else.
They can relate to each other where you, like at school, like, I mean, Olivia's not homeschooled, so she goes to public school, and, she doesn't even attempt to try to explain to those people what CrossFit is a lot of times. They're just like, what's CrossFit? Or,
You just work out really fast.
Yeah.
We've never been able to figure out the right way to explain to teachers or other people.
I mean, people be like, so she just flips tires or what? I'm like, no, it's not quite like that, but
there's just a lot to it. So it's hard to explain it in some short little explanation. So it always comes off falling short, any explanation. And it is it is an odd, different situation because a lot of people at Olivia's high school don't really understand, anything about her CrossFit life. So
Yeah, I don't know if you guys follow Caden Hogan. He's from Atlanta. Oh yeah, you know Caden. But I was talking with him recently, and if you look at some of his reels, they're hilarious because he'll lift in his high school weight room, and he said they don't know what he's doing. They don't understand it. So he said, I don't even try to explain it. I just go in and have fun. And I remember one time, this is a while back, someone said it was about the CrossFit Games or something. I was watching them, and they said, wait, so you just watch other people work out? And I was like, well, kinda. Same thing. Didn't know quite how to explain it. I want to just kind of, start wrapping it up so you guys can get on with your day. But two things that I have lots of things on my mind, but one of them for sure. You mentioned, Shellie, that, there's a lot of vacations that, are CrossFit related or, it just really consumes the family, and I feel you there for sure. And I know you have three daughters. So you got Anna, and she's your first. How did that? How did you kind of navigate? Did you ever have some rules like, okay, one day a year we're doing something that has nothing to do with CrossFit, or how did you kind of navigate that? Was there ever any sort of just, maybe not jealousy, but you know what I'm saying, when it's kind of hard? I know my own 12-year-old has said, Mom, can we please go on a vacation that does not include a CrossFit competition? And I'm like, I'll try.
And we have made a point to do a couple of those vacations that didn't involve a CrossFit competition. And honestly, it was good for all of us. Not that we didn't still go find a CrossFit gym and do a drop-in and do a workout, but Anna didn't have to go along for that. That could be a beach day or a shopping day. Honestly, Ellie and Olivia are not shoppers at all. So if they want to go to the CrossFit gym and I can take Anna shopping, then we find that balance. And everybody gets to do what they want to do. And, and we just, and last summer, that was kind of a part of our decision with Olivia, going teen again. We had a trip planned during COVID, so it got canceled, but it was for our 25th wedding anniversary, and we were going to go to Europe, and it had gotten delayed for 2 years. So at the time it would have worked out, but 2 years later, here's Olivia in the middle of her CrossFit season again. And we had this trip that we had to take because it was, mostly paid for and had been booked for 2 years before. And so we went on, a 2-week trip to Europe, and we actually ran into Caden in the Vatican in Rome. So imagine that, like CrossFitters all over the world. That's like the amazing connection. And Olivia and Caden ended up going to a CrossFit gym and working out in Rome. And there were some kids that came to see them, which was a lot of fun and really cool. So, we do take those little trips every once in a while to kind of make up for it. It's good for everybody, actually. Like that was a good break for Olivia and Ellie too, like just to get away from the CrossFit stuff and have a trip that was just all about our family. And
you think it's a break though, but sometimes we're in Venice, Italy, and you look on your patio and you got these 2 girls doing burpees and push-ups, and you're like, they're doing a AMRAP of air squats and whatever. I'm like, what are you doing? You're on vacation. But it doesn't stop usually.
Yeah, well, that's funny. We went through a season, it was very early, Ezra was probably 13, 14, where everything was a pull-up bar. Everywhere we walked, I don't care what it was, if you're at the park or at a doorway, or everything was a pull-up bar at first.
We did that too. Olivia used to do that on the monkey bars at elementary school and come home with just horrid ripped hands because they're such terrible bars. But I'll never forget. This is our big family joke. We went to the 9/11 museum in New York, and it was, I think Olivia was probably 10 at the time, and they had gotten through it faster, and I was taking more time with Anna probably getting through it. So they were sitting out there waiting, and Olivia, all fidgety, starts doing push-ups, and the security guard comes over and says, "Miss, you can't do push-ups in here." And so we're like, "Okay, Olivia, it's the 9/11 museum. You can't do push-ups in here."
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's a wonderful story. That's funny. Do you I have kind of 2 last questions maybe to kind of sum things up, and one may not really apply to you because it sounds like both of your girls were your CrossFit Games girls were pretty motivated. But one thing that I know I hear parents trying to balance, and I know I did as a parent as well, was how much to do for them and how much to sort of make them do. You mentioned that Olivia does her meal prepping, things like that. I know over the years it's always been like, when I first got started, I would be like, do they have their water? Do they have their shoes? Do they have their belts? And then somebody said to me, stop. If he's going to be that level of an athlete, he can get his own shoes, and whatever. How did you kind of, do you have any advice for other parents, kind of how much to do for them, how much to sort of make them do themselves?
Yeah, I think, I think our girls have always been pretty strong-willed. So the fact that they take charge of a lot of that stuff themselves, and when they start I think Russell's more like, do you have this? Do you have that? And when they get annoyed with them 100 times over, like, stop, I got it. Then he knows to kind of back off. But, he's always like worrying, like, they have everything. Do you have your backup rope? Do you have all this? But they've kind of always taken charge of that. The thing about figuring out where to help, I mean, and we still, like, I still, like, I cook, like, she'll give me her meal plan and I'll cook for her every night so that when she gets home from the gym at 8 o'clock, her dinner is ready and she has that to eat. And, like today, I'll probably help her with meal prepping because she's got a long day. She's got a long day of training today. So I'll help her with her meal prep, and just really whenever anybody steps in to help out. And I think it's funny because the 20-year-olds that she trains with are like, you have no idea. We have to go home and find our own food. So when you get to go home and mom's cooked for you, you have a rude awakening ahead of you yet. When you're on your own completely and you get home at 8 o'clock and you're like, what am I going to eat now? So, I mean, it's just the little things now, like helping out where we can. I can definitely tell, like, when she's got a lot going on at school and things like that, and tests and stuff. So that's when I want to step in and try to take some of the stuff off of her plate so that she can focus on other stuff. But it's kind of just the typical parenting balance that you have to find as they grow. I mean, I think definitely when they were younger, there was more of the, do you have everything? And then as they get older and take more charge of it themselves, letting go and help just kind of finding that balance all the way till, you're sending them out the door on their own.
For sure. Yeah. I remember one time my own son, his shoes came untied during a fittest experience workout that he should have won. And I just remember thinking, your shoes weren't tied, and but I thought, well, it was a good lesson, it was a good lesson to learn. But and then I think I keep saying one more question, but sort of two last thoughts would be, one would be, what would you like to see as CrossFit, the sport of CrossFit, the company of CrossFit, the games, etc., as moving into the future for teenagers? Is there anything that you'd like to see maybe more of, less of, or done a little bit differently? So that'd be one question. And then my last is just to sum up, I'd love to hear from you guys, just like your best advice. If I'm a new parent and I'm kind of new to CrossFit, my kid really loves it and it looks like they're pretty good and they're going to be doing this thing, what would be your best advice? So those two thoughts, just for the CrossFit Games and the teenage world, and then also just your best advice for parents overall.
I don't know if you have anything. I would say that for the CrossFit Games, I think it's probably just getting more opportunities for competitions that teenagers can do to gain experience. I know that was a challenge of ours. We constantly had to ask if the girls could do a competition, even though they weren't old enough. And we really just had to rely on people that would take the chance and let them do it. There's, of course, liability issues there and concerns with that. But all along the way, we had a lot of people that let them do competitions that they weren't old enough to do. And Wadapalooza was one of the first ones, especially with Olivia. She always did Wadapalooza because it was the only actual competition that had like a teenage division. It was definitely one of the first that had a teenage division. So I think that's probably the main thing, is to just help the kids develop in their sport, is to have more competitions that allow them to get out. I mean, if you look at any other sport that kids are doing, parents are traveling to volleyball games, to basketball games, to football games, like, all around their area to get them more exposure to different competition. So it'd be nice if CrossFit had something like that as well to help the kids develop.
Yeah, I'd say that for sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you just have to get more experience at it. Like she said, though, I mean, you're traveling around anyway doing, kids that are doing volleyball or soccer or whatever, they're doing the league stuff or whatever. But I mean, I know CrossFit hasn't grown to that level where there's that many kids doing it in this area or whatever, but maybe it will be someday,
Yeah, we shameless pitch here for our event, which is a licensed event, just for teenagers. So all 14 through this year, we're going up to 22. We're adding that collegiate division, that 18 to 22, because those kids kind of have.
Yeah, they're left. They're kind of in a limbo there between getting to the next level.
Yeah, and we really try to give them like both a little. We want to carve our own space, but little bit festival, so a little bit Wadapalooza feel, but a little bit games feel also. So festival because it's fun and you're doing fun stuff with your friends, but you're also at a very high level of competition on the ranch,
Yeah.
which is kind of good. And so that's kind of one of our goals, is to give them that opportunity. And this year we're doing our qualifiers for an entire month. So the whole month of June is qualifiers, which kind of lends itself to kind of a league feel. So it's almost like a summer league. You can do the workouts as many times as you want to qualify. So I hear exactly what you're saying. We see the need, and we're hoping to meet it in our little neck of the woods up here at the pit. And then lastly, your advice for for parents in general, just your best, if you had to like sum it all up to like these 2 or 3 things, just make sure you do this. What would you tell them? A new parent.
I would say let your kid lead the way and be there to support them. And so if your kid leads the way, it can look different at different times, I think. I mean, there can be times where maybe they decide they want to try a different sport or go a different direction for a while, and that's okay. But if they are charging ahead full force, like just being there to support and guide them, so getting them what they need when they need it, but and just really letting them take the lead on what their CrossFit career looks like, because there are going to be kids that are going to push really hard. And I mean, I think that's what we learned from our kids is, I mean, when I tried to redirect Ellie from gymnastics to CrossFit and then realized, I guess this is just her. She's very determined and driven, and she's going to work like that at whatever she's doing. So, and once you recognize that, then it's okay. Just like let them lead the way. And then the other thing is really to kind of not rush it. I think that's what we're seeing in the sport right now. And it's pretty critical. These guys can have a really long career in this sport if they stick with it and if it's what they choose to do. And right now we're seeing the pressure on the teenagers that have been doing it a while to kind of do it sooner and faster, like the pressure for Olivia to go elite when she was only 16, and a lot of that all coming, and then again, 17. And if you look at a lot of Ellie grew up, competing next to Haley Adams, and she was incredible, like still is incredible, but we're starting to see what effect that has on them, at such a young age. So that's always been a concern of mine too. And I think of any parent that goes through this. I know there are a lot of other fellow teenage parents that worry about the amount of pressure, and they put it on themselves as much as anything. So I think it's just really important for the parents to be there, and let them know, like, if you want to slow down, if you want to take a break, it's okay. You've got a long time in this career. You got a long time, and you can, it doesn't have to be rushed. And so that's something to think about when you're looking at coaches and different things like that too. Like, do they understand that, none of them need any added pressure. They all put the pressure on themselves, and that pressure can be in school. It can be with their CrossFit career. It can be in a lot of areas in life, as we've starting to see, social media comparisons, all of those things contribute to it. So I think the biggest thing we can do as parents is to just be there to support them, but let them lead the way. Let them know it's okay if they want to take a break, if they need to step away, if they change their mind and decide to do something else. Just always be there to support them, whatever their decision is.
Wow, that's Russ. Do you have anything to add to that? That was so beautifully said. So beautifully said.
That pretty much says it.
She
Just
did.
have fun.
She did. Have fun. And Shellie, you actually, there was one more question, and it was related to that very thing. You completely answered it, and it was, having safeguards in place and kind of making sure that we are supporting our children with regard to the pressure that that they feel if they're at that level, or if they're that good, there's sort of the pressure to go on. And the questioner did mention Haley Adams, and I'd love to actually get to talk to her sometime. But yeah, thank you so much for saying that. That was perfect. And I know for us at the pit too, we're very, very conscientious of that. We want the kids to be hard workers and tough, and leave no doubt and all that gritty stuff, but we don't want them burning out, before they're 20 years old and feeling miserable. This is supposed to be a great sport that's, good for life. So yeah, great to hear that. Well, it is 11:05 and I don't want to keep you guys any longer on this Sunday. I know you got it sounds like you're going to have some meal prepping to do, among other things. We hope to catch up with you again for sure. Of course, we always love to see your family, and I'm going to click the button here, hit the video, and then we'll be gone. Is there anything else you'd like to say to anybody else about anything?
I don't think so, but thank you for having us on.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys. Sorry, I'm All right, guys. Well, this is Steph ending. Looks like I didn't quite end right. I'm going to hit this button one more time and let it go, and then I'll see you out. Thanks for listening, whoever's been listening. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, make all the demons quiet. Yeah, we were built to thrive. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night? Yeah, make all the demons quiet. Yeah, we were built to thrive. Yeah.